Everybody, we're going to start now, okay? Can you all hear me? No, not much. Can you all hear me now? Is that better? Okay. So, welcome to tonight's South East Local Area Committee. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming on this warm evening. My name's Councillor Karen McGarren, and I'm the chair of the Local Area Committee. Before we go any further, I'd just like to put on record my thanks to Councillor Tony Downing for all his hard work in setting up the South East like last year when it was the first year of its running, so thank you, Tony, for that. Before I ask other councillors to introduce themselves, I'll hand over to the committee clerk, who's going to read out the housekeeping arrangements. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So before we start, there are just a few housekeeping arrangements to mention. Please can I request that mobile phones and other such equipment are switched to silent mode so as not to disturb the conduct of the meeting. There is no fire test planned for today. If there is an emergency evacuation, please take instruction from the council staff present. The assembly point is outside the venue through the door to the left, just there. The toilet facilities are also situated through the door to the left. The meeting today is open to the public and will be streamed live and for subsequent broadcast via the council's website. You should be aware that the council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during this webcast will be retained in accordance with the council's published policy. By entering the meeting room, you are consenting to be filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting. One final thing to mention. We have hearing loops available. If you would like to use one, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So can I ask for members now to introduce themselves? So if we start at that end and work round. Curtis.
Hi, Councillor Curtis Crossland, member for Bayton.
Councillor Anne Woolhouse, also for Bayton.
Councillor Tony Downing, councillor for Mosborough.
Councillor Gail Smith, also for Mosborough.
Councillor Denise Fox for Burley Ward and Deputy Chair.
And Councillor Nick Rooney, councillor for Woodhouse.
Yeah, so I'm Fiona Martinez, I'm a Principal Committee Secretary here at Sheffield City Council.
Hi, I'm Jane Foles and I'm the South East LAC Manager.
Hi, Nick Hamilton, Head of Communities, Sheffield City Council.
Thank you, everybody. So before we proceed with the agenda, I'd just like to explain how the meeting is going to work tonight. So I will start the meeting and begin with the formal business of apologies, declarations of interest, exclusions of press. I will then ask an officer from the community safety team to take us through a presentation around the good parking scheme, which is one of the priorities we have developed within the South East. Once the presentation has concluded, we'll give a presentation of certificates to Brookhouse Junior School children who have completed the scheme, and this part of the meeting will not be webcast. Once we've completed this, we'll go back to the agenda items, commencing with the minutes of the previous meeting. We will then move to the important item of the local community plan proposed spend. The area manager will firstly give a presentation. Then the members of the committee need to agree the proposed spend subject to any amendments. Once the proposed spend has been agreed, the area manager will update you on the progress of the priorities within the community plan. We will then follow the proposed agenda. We will have public questions and answers for 30 minutes following that. Okay? So, apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillor Brian Lodge, Councillor Kevin Oxley, Councillor Jackie Satur and Councillor Paul Wood. Any further? No? Okay. Exclusions of the public and press. There are no items that require the exclusion of public and press this evening. And now we're going to declarations of interest. I would like to ask any members wish to declare an interest in any of the items of business on the agenda. No? Okay then, thank you. So now we're going to go to the community safety team, Jamie Dean, for a presentation. So Jamie, thanks.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Especially those at the back who this particularly pertains to, or the superstars who are joining us this evening. Good afternoon everyone, good evening. My name's Jamie Dean. I am one of the Senior Sustainable Communities Officers. I have a brief presentation to give you about the parking patrols that we've been doing with schools in the South East LAC, and I want to take this opportunity to very, very quickly introduce who my team are and the work we've been doing in the LAC as well. There we go, excellent. Next slide, please. So who are we? The Sustainable Communities Officers are based within Sheffield City Council's antisocial behaviour team. Our primary role is to tackle antisocial behaviour. However, we've got a really good team with a broad skill set and a variety of backgrounds, and we're able to help contribute towards the LAC's priorities in areas other than just tackling antisocial behaviour. Our job role is on the screen right now. I'll very quickly touch on those points. Point number one, we are a taskable resource for our partners. We work with a large variety of partners such as South Yorkshire Police, Council Housing, as well as the local councillors here today and the LAC staff. So where there are issues that need to be addressed from our partners, they can task us and ask us to help. Point number two, our bread and butter really is to provide high visibility presence patrols in the community. We're there to deter antisocial behaviour. We engage with people who are causing issues as well as those who are affected by antisocial behaviour. We're there to listen to people's concerns and signpost where appropriate. Point number three, we're here to collect evidence and community intelligence to support enforcement action. Quite unsurprisingly, we find that people are more open to speaking with council staff and sharing intelligence, maybe more so than perhaps speaking to a uniformed police officer for fear of reprisals, etc. We work as part of a wider antisocial behaviour team where we have caseworkers, resolution officers, and they use the work that we do out in the streets to evidence casework for legal action. Point number four, we're here to support individual victims and witnesses of crime and antisocial behaviour. Some of the best work that our team has done, and I'm really proud of them actually, is in visiting victims in their own home, being a supportive presence, championing their cause, and in some cases being a shoulder to cry on. They do some really great work with victim support. And point five, we're here to work in partnership to support a coordinated and effective response. I like to say, we're one part of the wheel. We have to work well with our partner agencies and make sure we're all working together towards a common goal. Next slide, thank you. How do you access our service? As I mentioned, we're a taskable resource to our partners, so I would encourage you, if you are suffering antisocial behaviour or you've got any issues that you want to report, to do that through the usual channels. If it's non-urgent crime, ring 101. If you're a council housing tenant, speak to your housing officer, or report issues to your local councillors here or the LAC. You obviously believe in the value of the LAC, or you wouldn't be here this evening or watching from home, and the LAC can task us. And I know that Scott from the LAC does frequently keep us very busy with tasking request forms. So, let's go on to the juicy bit. We've been working to put on some problematic parking patrols recently. Next slide, please. As you may be aware, the LAC has had its consultation period and has put together a list of priorities which we're going to work on together, one of which is parking and exploring restrictions to reduce inappropriate parking. So we've got our heads together, we've come up with a scheme of work which we're rolling out to schools, and we think it's made a really positive benefit, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what that looks like now. So the plan is, we, over the course of 2 sessions, get pupils from primary schools across the LAC to come out and patrol with our members of staff, with our team, and to offer advice to drivers and parents about problematic parking. So the LAC has emailed schools in the area to offer these sessions out, and so far we've worked with Rainhead Primary, Brunswick, Brookhouse, St Joseph's, Mosborough and Burley Spa, and we're hopefully going to continue that rollout and work with more in the new school year. Session 1 of the scheme is classroom based. We get a small dedicated group, usually no more than sort of 12. We have worked with more bigger groups. We sit down in the classroom and we aim to educate the school pupils on what does illegal and inconsiderate parking look like, using real life examples such as the ones on the screen from around Sheffield, and we talk about why is that dangerous and is it illegal or inconsiderate. Next slide, please. So once the pupils are well versed in that and they're educated and they know what they're looking for out on the street, we then set them a bit of a homework task. And the task is to create some advice tickets which praise good parking, but also to create some that advise against inconsiderate parking. And there's some really good examples on the board there. The green ones to say, well done, you did a great job, because we want to be seen to be praising, as well as red tickets for a more negative purpose. Once those have been created, session 2 is all about... Sorry, could we just go back one? Thank you. Once those tickets have been created, session 2 is about getting out and about on the street with our officers, issuing those tickets, but also speaking to people. It's really nice, and we found it's really nice, speaking to people, saying, thank you for parking considerately. You've not endangered the pupils. Keep doing that. You're doing a great job. And where we need to have difficult conversations, that's where my team comes in. We can handle those on behalf of the pupils. Thank you. So how's it gone? What's our findings? It won't be any surprise to find that the children that we've worked with have really, really enjoyed the project. It's a hands-on, get involved, make a real difference, something tangible to do, and their enthusiasm has really shone through. We had a young boy at Burley Spa Academy who took great joy in issuing a red advice ticket to his mum at the end of the school day, which we thought was hilarious. We've noticed that the nature of interactions improves on school staff historic recounts. What that means is we turn up at a school and a lot of the time we find school staff say, oh, it's really bad here. We try and challenge motorists, but we get a lot of abuse. We get a lot of grief for trying to tell them to go move down the road. But when we get the children to come out with us and issue those tickets, that's not the case. I don't know many people that would mouth off to a bunch of school children who have got the brain power to say, actually, your part's inconsiderately. So it, from that point of view, does really work. We've noticed a big difference in the number of interactions from the start of our patrol week to end. So, and the first time we take the children out, we speak to quite a few people, but by the end of the week, the message seems to sink in, and people seem to get that message that they need to make better choices, and they seem to do that. So it does make an impact. And finally, word of mouth between parents. We've spoken to a few parents at Brookhouse, for example, who said, oh, I knew you were coming today because it was on the parents' WhatsApp group. So word does get around. And in fact, last week I went to Rainhead, and the head teacher at Rainhead said, I heard about your scheme because my friend got a green parking ticket from their child's school. So it is a good scheme, and positive things are being said about it. But we want it to be sustainable. We don't want to go into school, put a few sessions on and then lose all that good work, because we know what people are like with their parking behaviours. When there's no one there, they resort back to poor decisions. So we want it to be sustainable. So we've worked where we can with school councils or eco-councils. Having that dedicated team who want to take ownership of the school's issues tends to work. And what we tried to do is signpost at the end of our scheme, signpost schools to the Junior Road Safety Officer scheme, which is run by Sheffield City Council's road safety team. So there's a bit of continuity there and a specialism. If the school really wants to take it seriously, there's that further scheme we can point them to. And of course, school year's about to wind down, but in September, if schools ask for it again, we're more than happy to go out and offer that again. We've enjoyed it. My team have done a great job. The kids have done a great job. Let's keep it going if we can. I want to finish with a bit of feedback. This filled me with joy. Sat on my sofa on Sunday doing a bit of Twittering. This is from Brookhouse Junior, who said, we're proud of our school councillors for supporting Sheffield Council by promoting safe parking to our parents. Hashtag be safe, hashtag role models. Obviously with obscured faces there. And a couple of parents' interactions as well. Thank you for my safe parking ticket. This is the second one I've received. I'm happy to know my parking is keeping everyone safe. This is one of the handwritten ones because we actually ran out of the printed versions because we issued so many good ones, which was great. And I think we've got one more from, I think, another parent. Dear Brookhouse Junior School Councillors, I was really happy to receive a good parking certificate from you today. Very kind of you. Thank you for the great work you're doing to encourage safer parking on our street. Thank you. So if you have any questions on this, I will hang around at the end, or my email, that's my work email. If you want to get in touch, please do so. If you are sat today thinking, my child's school could really benefit from that, give your head teacher a nudge, point them in our direction. We're more than happy to go and work with extra schools. And finally, it's time that we dished out some certificates for the real stars of the show who have been sat there patiently listening. We're joined this evening by pupils from Brookhouse School, and I know that we need to stop the meeting to give out those certificates. So if we can do that now, that would be great. Do you want to stand up, guys, if you're from Brookhouse School?
Yes?
Can I just make a point?
Yeah.
I don't know whether you noticed, but on High Street outside the Lifestyle Centre, it's a danger. There's that many cars parking up there that you can't get access to anywhere. It's like a rat run. I mean, how anybody ain't got knocked down, I do not know.
Okay.
But it's right outside Lifestyle Centre, both sides of the road.
Yeah. I was going to say, we're not going into question and answer at the minute, but we have got a question and answer discussion at the end. So, and we will take that up for you. Okay. Thanks. So, if we can now turn the webcast off.
I just want to say it's great to see the kiddies here tonight receiving their awards for the great work that they've been doing with the school. However, I would like to mention that perhaps it would be useful if local councillors had known about this so that they could attend if possible. I don't know if that's something that we should be looking at for the future. I know all the councillors can't always attend because of work commitments, but there are some that would be able to attend if they were asked to come along when they were doing these things with the children. Thank you very much.
Tony, can I just clarify, you mean the events in the school when they go outside the schools? Right, okay. Is Jamie, is he still around? Yeah, Jamie, can you take that on board? And so councillors are asking that when you are doing the events in the schools, can you let them know it's happening in their school so they can go along and join in and take part? Is that okay? Thank you. Thanks. Okay. So now we'll move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. So can members approve as a correct record the minutes of the last meeting held on the 8th of March 2022? Is everybody happy that they are a true and correct record? Mm-hmm. Yep? Yeah, okay, we'll pass those as correct. So over to you now, Jane, the area manager, to give a presentation around the proposed spending allocations of the £100,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can everyone hear me? Yeah? It's not on? It is on. It is on?
Jane needs to move it closer.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Is that better? Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. So first part that I want to talk to you about is the approved spend of the £100,000 that's attached to the local area committees. So just to give you a brief background, I'm not sure how much everyone knows. So LACS started in May last year. Across the city, there's 7 lakhs, and then in September of last year we undertook consultation both online and in person with all of the residents in the southeast of Sheffield that wanted to take part. What happened then was that we got the consultation information back, and from that information we produced some priorities and some themes. They were based on what the people of South East Sheffield told us that they liked or disliked about their area, or what they wanted to see improved, or what they would like to see. We had a virtual meeting in January to discuss those priorities further, and we broke off into some work streams and had a discussion around transport on highways, environmental issues, and also crime and community safety. From those discussions and from subsequent meetings, what happened then is we produced our community plan. And the community plan was brought to our meeting in March, and the committee, we talked through the plan, and the committee agreed and signed off that plan. So what we need to do now is to make the committee aware of the proposed spend of that 100k, because to deliver those priorities we need to obviously be taking that forward. So what we have, if you've got a packet, we'll show you in there. So to start off with, under the transport and highways theme, there's a recommendation that the LAC undertakes a speeding review. That was agreed. The speeding review is agreed for each of the 4 wards. What is proposed is that £10,000 is allocated to each ward after that speeding review has taken place, and that is to be spent on issues that have been raised from the speeding review, and to try and resolve anything that we have around speeding, etc. We've also purchased a speed gun. That's already been purchased. That was agreed in March for community speed watch activities.
That will be used by South Yorkshire Police, so that's by the local police in this area, and they've given a commitment that they'll use that on a frequent basis and they'll report back to the local area committee on what the findings are from there and any prosecutions that are taken, so they'll provide us with numbers of what's happening there. We've also added in there a recommendation that we'll have up to £14,000 as a contingency fund, and that's to further support and develop ideas and projects that have been highlighted within the highways and transport theme, that part of the plan. As you can appreciate, we're only in sort of like the end of June now. We've undertaken some of the speeding review within the Mosborough ward, and I'll report back on that in a little while. But what we need to do is obviously detail some of this further, so there's a contingency fund in there. When we look to local environment, we've looked to allocate up to £2,000 to tackle initiatives to address litter and dog fouling issues. We've also looked to recommend up to £2,000 to promote environmental awareness across the South East area. And then there's a contingency fund of up to £13,000, and again that's to support and develop ideas and projects that are highlighted within the environmental theme that will be developed as we progress. Within the community safety and crime theme, we've already allocated just short of £5,000 to a project which will support the increase in the numbers of toddler groups across the South East area. That was a recommendation that came from Woodhouse Forum and the Children's and Family Service, and that was to increase the number of mother and toddler groups across the South East. Once COVID had hit, it was found that was a massive decrease. It was only around 10 across the South East area. It decreased quite a lot. There's also a recommendation that there will be up to £2,000 to tackle the perceived fear of crime, and that could be around safety awareness campaigns, and that will be working in line with the community safety team and South Yorkshire Police. There's a recommendation that we allocate up to £4,000 for tackling youth provision. That's working with youth services and the youth cabinet to address issues of youth provision within the South East area. And there is a contingency fund of up to £13,000, and again that's to support and develop ideas and projects that are highlighted within the community safety and crime theme. So if you add all those, you'll find that comes up to £100,000. What will happen at subsequent public meetings is we will come back and we'll report where we are with that spend and where we've progressed further with projects. But what we need to do now is to see if the committee are in agreement with the proposed spend.
Okay then, so the report contains recommendations for approval by members. So can I ask the committee to consider the recommendations, and are you all in agreement? Yes?
So I've got two questions really on two different things. I'm happy to see money being spent to tackle speeding in the area. Can I just confirm that the £10,000 per ward is going to go on actually tackling speeding and not just on meetings? Is it actually to alleviate the problem? Perfect, good. And then secondly, £100,000 looks a lot written down, but that could disappear fairly quickly with how expensive things are. And I think it's important that the money represents what people need. Is there ways of, there's a lot of people here tonight, is there ways of continuous feedback from residents to make sure that we are spending the money on what people want and need?
Yeah, I think James just said that we'll be bringing it back and the public will be able to review what's happening and seeing if they get value for money out of the projects that's happening. So there will be that two-way accountability. Yeah, and at the same time, if members of the public have got ideas around any of the issues, then we'll be pleased to hear them, and maybe some of the contingency will be towards of that. Okay, is that okay? Thanks.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, that's the idea of the contingency fund under each of the themes, so that if there is a suggestion that comes from one of these meetings or through whatever medium, then we have the wriggle room to respond to that. It didn't seem sensible at the time when we were discussing this to just simply allocate all of the money just for the sake of it, and that's why we got the contingencies.
So can I ask, is everybody happy with agreeing the recommendations? Sorry? Yeah, do you want to have a show of hands? Yeah, that's unanimous. Thank you. So I am now going to, the area manager, Jane, will continue with the presentation regarding the update of the community plan.
Okay, thank you. I do have slides for you to see. So I just wanted to bring you up to speed with where we are with some of the priorities that we've been working on. You've heard a little bit about some of the parking schemes that we've been working on from Jamie. So when we undertook the consultation, one of the key things that came out under Transport and Highways was around parking and speeding vehicles. So the local area committee, as Councillor McGowan said earlier, worked with the community safety team and the schools and the councillors to highlight and to approach the schools to try and tackle the issues that Jamie talked about earlier with the inappropriate parking. As you can see, it was a huge success, or it seems to have been so far. We need to make sure that we continue with that, and that continues and rolls out sort of each year. But it is a thing that obviously the children really enjoyed. Okay, and we're hoping to roll that and get the children involved in all of the schools across the South East area. Okay. So I mentioned a little bit about speeding issues. So each of the local area committees were allocated funding for one speeding device. That's a mobile speeding device. It's called a vehicle activation sign, a VAS, and that is one VAS per ward. So the local area committee worked with, obviously, with the local councillors and the intelligence that we've got, and we've highlighted 6 initial locations in each ward where that vehicle activation sign will go. So at the minute we're working with our colleagues in Highways, and they're starting to roll out. So there will be 6 areas located in Mosborough, 6 in Bayton, 6 in Burley and 6 in Woodhouse, and the VAS will be rotated round every 6 to 8 weeks. These new vehicle activation signs, they're a little bit like the smiley SIDs that you may have seen, but they're not reliant on solar energy to sort of power them, and the information that we can get from these new VASs gives us a lot more detail to allow us to be able to work with our colleagues in the police and within Highways to target the area. So it will provide us with details around the number of speeding vehicles, the time of day that those cars were speeding, etc. So it will allow us to do that. That in line with the speed gun as well, it enables us to, I suppose, take a much more proactive approach to dealing with issues around speeding vehicles within the area. Okay. So we were hoping actually that the speed gun would have been here. It's not yet arrived. So we worked with South Yorkshire Police, and we've ordered, it's a CL700 laser speed meter. In consultation with South Yorkshire Police, they informed us that although they do have a speed gun in the South East area, it's not solely for the South East area, and it's quite antiquated, and it doesn't provide them with the information that they would necessarily need. So if they've gone out, and you probably have seen them on the side of the road and they're standing there with the gun, it's really just a deterrent in the respect of that you can see a police officer stood there. This new speed gun will allow the police, it gives them again much more detail and allows them to undertake prosecutions as well. We're also hopeful that working with the community safety team, the local councillors and the local policing teams, that we can undertake some education programmes as well throughout the area for any residents or any schools that want to be involved in that. So it's promoting the education and highlighting the fact, and I suppose getting residents to take, where we can, responsibility for what they're doing with their cars and speeding vehicles. Yeah, next slide. Okay. So alongside that as well, so when we're looking at the education campaigns, what came with the speed gun was just some information with a big sign that actually flashes up the speed that you're doing. So if you're driving down, you were doing 60 miles an hour, not only will you have somebody stood there with a speed gun, you also have a massive sign that stood there that flashes up as well. Thank you. Oh, sorry, can you just move on? Then I'll have to go back to that one. Yeah, it's out of order. So I talked a little bit earlier. One of the key things that came out from the consultation was the issues around speeding vehicles throughout the area. So the committee took a decision at the latter end of last year to undertake speeding reviews in all 4 wards. That speeding review commenced in the Mosborough ward, and we went out to consultation in the middle of January. That concluded after about 6 or 7 weeks, and we pulled together the information, and from the feedback that we got from there, we also had a number of residents within the area that wanted to be part of a residents panel and be involved in what actions could be taken to resolve the issues around speeding. So we had a feedback meeting a couple of weeks ago. I think it was one of the hottest Fridays that we were sat in a school within the Mosborough area, and we had officers there from the police, we had councillors present, the local councillors, and we also had colleagues there from our highway services and the members of the public that had asked to be part of the residents panel. We had an in-depth discussion amongst the group, and there was a number of outcomes that were identified that we need to do further work on. So one of the first things that we're going to be doing is undertaking it's a speed, I'm looking for the word now, it's not a review, it's speed review. So what we'll actually do is we'll get out there in the 6 allocated areas. They were the areas that came up most frequently within the information that came back, so that we've got the relevant data, and what will happen is those speed reviews will take place over a 7-day period, and there'll be 24 hours a day, and then that information will come back and it will help inform what further action needs to be taken. We've also asked for accident information to be passed back to the group, and as you will have seen from the information that we talked about earlier when I was presenting to the committee the allocated spend, the committee have agreed that each of the wards will be allocated £10,000 to spend on some of those outcomes that come out of the review. Okay, thank you. Okay. So anybody that was part of the environmental themes that took place when we had the discussions in January and in March, one of the key things that came out was that people were telling us it was a real issue for them if they were reporting faulty street lights. It was quite awkward to know what to do, and there was a suggestion from the group that actually couldn't we come up with some easy, accessible, I suppose, poster that told people how they could report the lights straight through to our colleagues within AME. So we've designed a poster, and that's going live on the website more or less as we speak. Okay. As a local area committee as well, we were also allocated £57,000, so that's aside from the 100k, to tackle fly tipping issues throughout the area. So again, we work with our local councillors and our colleagues from different services within parks and housing and highways to highlight what were deemed the hotspot areas across the area. So we have highlighted those. We're working with our colleagues in environmental services and our local councillors to, I suppose, to make sure that we can do what we can to alleviate the issues with fly tipping across the area in those hotspot areas. So work will be taking place starting from next week to look at those issues. We've also asked the question, traditional fly tipping within the southeast is not as much of an issue as it is in other parts of the city, but one of the issues that was highlighted within the southeast, and certainly from the consultation and from feedback, is that actually littering and fly posting is more of an issue across the area. So we're trying to work with our colleagues again within environmental services to see if we can use some of that money to tackle and approach those issues. Okay. One of the priorities that came out, we had a lot of comments about this, was the issue around dog fouling across the area. So we've started some initial meetings with colleagues again within environmental services to try and target the issues of dog fouling and littering across the area. Again, as you've noticed, £2,000 had been allocated to start with some campaigns across the area to try and highlight the issues and tackle that. We're also continually working with our colleagues within South Yorkshire Police who are frequently undertaking off-road biking issues, so they're delivering operations across the South East area in the highlighted areas. So that's ongoing within the plan. That was down as being an ongoing issue and something that they would be reported back. Also within the crime and community safety theme, it became apparent that actually there was lots of information fed back to us around concerns around the number of youth that were hanging around certain areas throughout the southeast. When we looked into that deeper, and the information that was fed back from local residents and obviously from local councillors, youth provision within the southeast is a real concern. It's not at its highest. We also, when we looked at the information from people that had replied to the surveys, we had a really extremely, virtually non-existent response from people under 30, to be fair, and especially from children from teenage years up to early 20s. So we've started some work with the youth services and the youth cabinet to speak to our young residents of Sheffield, and particularly in the southeast area of Sheffield, to find out what it is that's important to them and what it is that they would like to see the local area committee help support them with and deliver. So there's some consultation work that's currently taking place. The youth services are working in an off-site youth club in the Crystal Peaks area, and they're undertaking some face-to-face consultation with the children that are using those facilities. And then also the youth cabinet have undertaken some online consultation with children from the schools that they're at. We have somebody from the youth cabinet that will be giving a small presentation in a little while, so I don't want to steal any of their thunder, but we were really keen, or the South East Local Area Committee are really keen that we get the views of the young residents of the South East area, and that what we do provide is actually something that they want to see. And again, there's up to £4,000 that's currently being identified to help that work. I mentioned a little earlier that one of the key things as well was the concern around social isolation since the pandemic had hit, and part of that fed out because of the perceived fear of crime and young youths hanging around. But when we looked at that further, one of the key things that came out first of all is the fact that the number of mother and toddler groups had decreased severely within the South East area during the pandemic. And I mentioned it earlier, we'd gone down to 10. So Widows Forum, along with Children and Young People Services, came with a proposal to raise that target within 12 months to increase it by 12 across all of the areas, so that's 3 per ward. And to do that, what they've done is they're running courses for young mothers to support them in setting up the groups, trying to help, hopefully making the groups sustainable, and also providing them with the necessary equipment to start those groups off. And again, we'll be getting information back. So they've started that started around about 4 weeks ago, and I think we've currently got 1 group that's up and running in the Hackenthorpe area. We also, it was in the group actually that I was in, so I led the Crime and Community Safety group. A couple of the residents that were in that group were saying how difficult it was to report crime and how confusing it was, whether they needed to ring 101, whether they needed to ring 999, whether they needed to go to their colleagues within the council service, etc. So we were asked if we could devise a leaflet again that would provide people with information of where they needed to go, how they could report crime online. So we've come up with this, we've worked with colleagues within our community safety team and also within our local policing team, and again this is good to go. This will go out very shortly. Okay. So that's where we currently are. There's lots of projects. The big is around obviously the speeding concerns and the issues around parking, and we're slowly, obviously, as I've just explained, developing some of the others. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. What I would say is if anybody's got any ideas or any anything that you think, oh, this would be a good idea, then if you feed it through to your local councillors, then they'll be able to take it forward through to the LAC team, and hopefully we'll be able to look at supporting that. So yeah, I'm just going to do is it the same what you was talking about before?
No, it was to ask Jane if she remembers. We used to bring out your rubbish days in Baden and areas like that. And it's something that we ought to get.
Yeah, go on then, Kate.
Yeah, brilliant idea, Kath, but just to clarify, that was just council tenants, not for residents. It was the council. Yeah, I do.
You know,
yeah.
People will get an answer to and take it back to their school.
Yeah.
You know, new residents. You know.
Right, can I just bring Nick in, because he just wants to say, what I want to do is, we've got the youth cabinet that's going to come in and make a presentation after this, and then we're open up for full questions about anything you've heard today. Yeah, that's fine. Nick, do you want to just answer on this?
Thank you. We have looked at it, and we've taken professional advice from people in recycling and refuse and what have you. The issue we've got with it is the cost of it is excessively prohibitive in terms of the things that actually get dumped, and in terms of what you can actually put in both the compactor machines and, you know, people dump tyres, which we struggle to get rid of. They dump gas bottles, fridges, etc., etc. And the consensus is that in terms of a lot of the bring out your rubbish stuff, not entirely, but a lot of people, it's just a case of it's an opportunity to clear out the lofts and put something out on the side, whereas the fly tipping that takes place in country lanes and stuff, those individuals don't have 50 tyres in their backyard or garden, and they will continue to do that. So it's a really difficult issue. We are trying to look at what is possible, but the difficulty is, a typical bring out your rubbish day will cost something like about £6,000 to £7,000. Yeah, and that's only a limited number of houses, so you'll probably only be talking about 300 or so houses tops. And if people leave stuff out, like asbestos, paint, that we can't take,
There's then additional costs incurred because we've got to get specialists in and it's dealt with as fly tipping. So it's come up in all the lack areas. Yeah.
It says you haven't read card, you can't store 300 quid biscuit or 150 biscuit.
One of the things we are looking at the moment, and whether it will run, I don't know, but is in terms of if looking at some kind of means testing. So maybe we've got the bulky item waste collection service, so you can actually phone up.
You can get it.
You can.
But if you're a resident and you're still on housing benefits or something like that, you can't get it.
Exactly, and that's what we're looking at doing to see. We're exploring at the moment with Amy colleagues, so you could potentially have some kind of means tested thing to get a voucher so that you could actually have so many items taken away. It's a difficult thing to do, but it is being looked at. But bring out your rubbish days, you could just, you could eat away all of the LAC budget and you wouldn't address a lot of the issues around fly tipping.
Thanks, Nick. Okay, so now we're going to...
Reporting crime.
Can we do that in the question and answers? Yeah, thank you. I've got you down, so I know that you're going to be the first one to ask. So now it's over to Emma Inchcliffe, who's going to do it from the Youth Cabinet. Can I just say, it's really, really good. One thing we want to do is encourage a lot more young people to come to these events. So it was great to see all the children, and now we've got the Youth Cabinet. So, yep, Emma, wherever you are. Thank you.
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay? Yeah, so my name's Emma Hinchcliffe. I'm the Young People's Involvement Lead within Sheffield City Council Community Youth Services, and the whole aim of what we do is to give young people a voice within their community, citywide level, regionally and nationally, linking into the opportunities so that they can work on issues that they're passionate about, they can have a say in decisions that affect their lives, because usually you find that actually because young people can't vote, they're not necessarily considered as part of the decision making and their voices aren't heard, so we're here to champion young people and work on those decisions. So one of the main things that we do is Sheffield Youth Cabinet and UK Youth Parliament. So Sheffield Youth Cabinet is made up of, similar to what you get with the council structure, we've got elected local youth councillors. So we've got 4 elected youth councillors in each of the local area committee areas. And then we've got UK Youth Parliament members, which are like our MYPs that work nationally. So what the difference is that the elected youth councillors work on the local and the citywide issues, and the members of UK Youth Parliament, because it's nationally, they do a big consultation of young people nationally, and then whatever issue comes out top is the issue that's worked upon. There is some site scope, so this time it's health and wellbeing, so we're embarking on a consultation with young people to look at what areas of health and wellbeing matter to them. So this is the structure which shows you the different areas. What we also have is, because we're aware that not every young person is confident, wants to put themselves to stand forward in an election process, because for the local councillors and the members of Youth Parliament it is a formal election process, and their term of office is a 2-year term of office. And so they have to write manifestos like elected members do, and they stand on those manifestos, and those manifestos are then sent out to all the schools within the local areas to vote on who they want to be their elected representatives. So because we're aware that not all young people put themselves forward, we also have special interest and link seats. So that's there to enable us to get as many representative voices as we can, and the idea is that where we have a linked seat, so for example the children in care, Sheffield have a children in care council, and we link into that structure and we have a representative that comes from there, so they're not just there representing themselves, they've got a group of young people that they can go back to and consult with and make sure that the work that the Youth Cabinet does is as inclusive as possible. So in terms of the priority areas, I've talked about the national priority, which is health and wellbeing. They went on a residential, and as a whole group citywide they decided on what they would want their citywide priorities to be. So that there were 3 decided on, which were votes at 16, which links into nationally, and nationally the British Youth Council have just partnered with Body Shop to try and lobby for national votes at 16, but we will be working with local elected members to allow young people to vote at 16. Reforming the curriculum is around young people feel that their curriculum at school is not as inclusive as it should be. So for example, there's elements of like sex education where they only teach about straight relationships in some schools, and it's not consistent across the city. Some schools are really good at curriculum, PSHE and life skills, but other schools aren't as good, and we want some consistency so that all our young people throughout the city are starting at the same point when they get to adulthood. And then the last one has become more apparent, I think, throughout COVID, but it's around young people's emotional well-being. And the main area that they focus on at the moment around that is the support that's available to young people in schools, because again, that's quite patchy across the whole of the city. And then, as previously mentioned, for the South East area, we're not just working with young people from the Youth Cabinet, because like we said, there's 5 people elected from South East into the Youth Cabinet. What we've done is we're looking at widening that. So we're in the process at the moment of developing a team of young people that want to make a difference in their local community. And so, as a small group, there's about 5 or 6 of them that started on a project, and their project is around places to go and things to do for young people. And so some of the young people are here tonight, sat in the seats down there. Do you want to give us a wave, guys, so people can see who you are? Yeah, do you want them to stand up? Are you confident enough to stand up, guys? So we've got another couple that unfortunately couldn't make it tonight due to it being mock exam season and things like that. They've got quite a lot going off. But these guys represent their peers and are really good at feeding into their schools and things like that. And some of them go to school in the area, some of them go to school out of the area, but they live in this community, and so they represent the peers within their community. So if you do know any young people that want to get involved, that are really passionate about an issue, that have got a cause that they want to champion, we're more than happy to support them in any way that we can to move that forward. And so if you do know anybody, get in touch with us, and we'll happily support them in any way we can, or connect them to groups that we're aware of that are working on those issues as well.
Thank you, Emma. I really appreciate you coming along tonight. It's great to see you. Hope you can keep joining us and working with us, and we'll do whatever we can as councillors to support you. Okay, thank you. There might be some questions that come up throughout. Yeah. Does any of the young people want to ask any questions or say anything about what you've been working on? I don't want to put you on the spot, and if you don't, that's absolutely fine. But I've just had Councillor Rooney asking me to put you on the spot.
Well, they do it for me. They do it to me, so I'm getting my own back.
Oh wow. I'm Becca and I live in Bayton, and I am a youth councillor for South East, and I'm also a member of Youth Parliament for the whole of East Sheffield. And the main reason why I got into this role was because I have a lot of ideas and things that I'm passionate about, and one of the main things that I'm extremely passionate about, because I have friends who are in this position, there's a lack of food banks within our area. There's only the S20 food bank, and there's quite a lot of people that are having to go there because of COVID, so there's quite a lot of things that are underfed into it, so a lack of funding for the food banks as well. So that's one of the main reasons why I got into that, because, like I said, I want to feed back to my peers, and they're obviously, within COVID, some of their parents, they can't work and they're struggling to get by with the cost of living crisis. So that was one of the main reasons what got me interested in joining Youth Council and Youth Cabinet. So
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Right, can I just say as well, it's really timely that as well, because we've got Laurie Brennan that's going to give us a talk in a minute about cost of living crisis and what Sheffield's doing about it. So that'll be a bit later, so that'll feed into that nicely.
Hello, I'm Zach Winston. I live in Bayton and I go to Mount St Mary's College, which isn't in the southeast but it's like on the border. I decided to join the Youth Cabinet because, well, I have like a really big passion for politics. I really love it, and when I saw that, you know, there was stuff like this available, I obviously have to do it. I think my main issues that I need to be resolved is so public transport, partly because it's good for the environment and also it's useful, but the issue right now is it's really unhygienic and it's not a very pleasurable experience. Also, like outdoor enrichment areas for kids, like play parks and stuff, is also they're not very good. There's a lot of it's quite dangerous, and also they're quite run down. There's not much effort and money put into that kind of stuff. And also youth homelessness, which is something my family and I have been fundraising for a long time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. So I'm going to now open up for public questions. We've received no questions in advance, so I'm going to invite members of the public if you want to ask questions. When you ask your question, can you please come forward to the microphone at the end of that table where you've seen everyone else sitting. Please clearly state your name and which area you're from, and if we're unable to answer any questions tonight, we will provide you with a written response, so we will need you to leave your contact details. Can people that's got a question just give me a show of hands so I know how many people I'm talking? So I've got at least 4. We've got 30 minutes for this item, that's all, so I just want to make sure we've got enough time. Okay, so I think I picked up that your name's Cass from earlier, so if you'd like to come, Cass.
I'm Kath Davis, chairperson of Bayton Tenants Association. There's 2 things actually I've picked up on what that young lad said. A few years ago we used to have a group from Westfield School for kids that weren't very good in school, that were unsure and not confident. They used to come to Rose Avenue, and we used to bake cakes, do craft and things like that, but that stopped. But you know, things like that are what encourages kids to give them confidence. And I met a girl today who used to come. She's full of confidence now, but that was the situation. But because of funding, no, it wasn't funding, it was teachers not having, they had to have 2 teachers come with them, and they got dropped them down to 1 as if Rose Avenue doesn't matter to them, but it mattered to kids, you know, and they were really upset. We went swimming with them, you know, we've got pictures in our meeting room of us going swimming with these kids. It was full of confidence, and it's a shame that stopped. Years before, we used to have a cyber cafe. Our place was full of computers, and we used to have a cyber cafe for our kids, you know, and as kids started getting computers themselves, then that died off, so we had to get rid of that. So I just thought I'd let you know that. Jane, the thing regarding reporting crime leaflets, are they leaflets that we can pick up, or are they going to be online?
Okay. There'll be both, Kath.
So it's just that we've got like an 80-odd-year-old woman comes in our place. Well, not from 80, but you know what I mean. And one of them's had a bit of a rough do at the moment with neighbours and that, and you know she's really terrified. And you know if she knows where she can contact someone like that young man that come, you know, then she'd probably feel a lot better. You know, so if we could have some leaflets so I can give it out to our tenants. Okay. Okay.
So Jane's going to deal with your second question. So it's fine. I'm just saying that's fine. Jane will deal with your second question, which is about the leaflets. Does any councillor want to take the question about Westfield School and what's happened there? Does anybody know about that?
Can be done for kids.
I'd like to address that.
Gail?
I think that's a brilliant idea, Kath, and I can go back to the days that you're talking about when we did used to get a lot of young people from Westfield School working in the community. I run a project for young people with learning disabilities, and we always had young people coming. I think they were called ASDAM Awards, I'm not quite sure now, but they used to get a certificate for volunteering for so long and working with our young people, and it's something that we've thought about as a charity, that we need to contact the local schools and ask them if any of the young people want to volunteer. So yeah, I think it would be nice to do that.
The room was free.
Yeah.
We just provided the room, and you know all these old people that used to come in to our group, all they ought to do is 6 or 7 old.
Can I just say, when you're not at the microphone, it's not being picked up. Okay, I'm just. Can I just say, Anne, I cut it all short earlier when you were mentioning traffic, and was it the lifestyle centre? Yeah, and Anne, you wanted to come in, so I just would give you that opportunity.
I was just going to say there is a scheme that's going to go in that's going to put yellow lines down there. So yeah, it's in.
Something about that other day when I saw it.
Yeah, it's in hand.
You can say your name and your ward, please.
Thank you. I'm Mike Peace. I live in Mosborough Ward, and because of my great age, I'm part of Sheffield 50 Plus. And we had a face-to-face meeting saying why there are only 10 of us at a 50 Plus meeting that used to be very well attended. One of the themes was, you'll be surprised, nobody knows where the toilets are now. The shops have gone. I understand in the past some of the shops, like Coles, had perfectly good toilets that most people, older people, knew about. But now, lots of people said, I like to know where the toilet is. I might not necessarily need to go, but I'd like to know where they are. And I haven't got a fancy phone to figure it out. So just put it on a lamppost or somewhere. Tell me where the toilets are. There are a number of other issues. We'll not bore you with them tonight, but it's a simple question. Where are the toilets?
Mike, can I just double check? You mean city centre, or you're talking south east?
It was city centre.
Right, okay.
We used to meet in the town hall on a Thursday after council day, but for various reasons, we don't now. But yeah, it's city centre. We want to, people who are over 50 want to go back and use the town centre, and buy cups of tea and coffee and the rest of it, but like to know where the toilets are. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I understand fully the situation that you're in, and we're all of a certain age. Well, so all of us, most of us are. Yeah, and it would be good if we could find something within the council, a mechanism that we can signpost people to where these toilets are, because I don't know where they are. I don't know whether Mick does. Do you know where they are, Mick?
It's a rather leading question, Councillor Dowling. I don't spend a lot of time looking for toilets in the centre, but I mean, in all seriousness, the answer might be that there aren't that very many of them, and that is an issue in itself, because we have over the years closed a significant number of them, some through lack of cash, and others because they were permanently being vandalised, and we just gave up throwing money after bad. But I think I'm right in the new development that's going to take place at the top of Falgate, which is the container structure thing, will have toilets in it, I believe, and you know that is a bonus. But being honest, I think the biggest the most honest answer is that there aren't very many of them, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks, Mick. Jamie, you wanted to come in, and then Gail wants to come in.
Yeah, just an answer for Mike in answer to that question. The Sheffield bid did used to have a LAVS scheme where they funded shops in the city centre to open their toilets to members of the public who didn't have to be paying customers. I don't know if that's still the case. If you want, I can chase them up and see if that's still the case, and speak to city centre management within the council, see if we can get a list for Mike and his group, if that would be helpful.
That'd be very helpful. Thank you, Jamie. Gail?
Jamie, we're talking about same thing. There was a scheme in Sheffield where shops had a sign that said that they were toilet friendly, so you didn't have to go to the counter and tell them, you could just go in. I think that's something, a brilliant idea, and something we should bring back. So we'll pass that on. Thank you.
I think it's Dawn, is it? Yeah. Yeah. Want to come forward? Yeah, so I'm Dawn. I'm Dawn Spear from Hackneythorpe. I'm the local group coordinator for Sheffield Greenpeace, along with my partner Richard. I've got quite a few questions actually, but I'm going to keep them all as brief as I can, because I'm not only talking about Greenpeace and the local area, but also I'm going to be talking about Sheffield litter pickers, because Richard, my partner, is part of the Sheffield litter pickers. So I'll start with the litter picking side. So the question about the litter picking is from my partner Richard. So back in early April we had the last LAC meeting, and Scott Ford was the community service officer there, and he expressed an interest in coming back to coming out with the Hackneythorpe litter pickers and setting up a meeting online with local litter picking groups, and we've heard nothing since. Now obviously that's something we'd like to pursue, because Richard put out a question to the group, the Hackneythorpe litter pickers group, just prior to me coming out to the meeting, asking if there were any questions that anybody would like answering, and within about 20 minutes there were 4. So obviously there are quite a few issues that the group would like to pick up on, things that haven't been addressed, and perhaps we could still have a meeting with one of the local community services officers, perhaps with one of the councillors, do something online and set something going whereby these things that haven't been picked up are picked up and addressed ongoing. Is that something that can be arranged? That's my first question. Shall I answer that one now and say, or do you want to do that, Jane?
Absolutely, Dawn. We would really welcome that. So Scott and myself, at the minute there's only Scott and myself in the team. So we'd contacted Amy, Gillian, to get a list of the groups within the area, with the very aim of trying to pull that together. So if you've got a group, we can set that up as soon as possible, to be fair. So definitely.
Okay, so I mean, if you can, I can give you either my phone number or Richard's phone number afterwards, email addresses, contact details, so that's something we can pick up on later. Brilliant. So on the back of that, I'd just like to say also, I think that the scheme that's being carried out with dangerous parking is fantastic, and I'd like to offer Sheffield Greenpeace's speaker services to the schools. Recently we did a very good programme, I don't know if any of you saw it, it was online,
It was the big plastic counts, where we were asking schools and the general public and businesses to get involved with counting plastic. On the back of that, we've actually got in contact with a lot of schools in the local area. Unfortunately, Sheffield schools don't seem to have picked up on it as much as we would like. We've had Doncaster, Rotherham and Sheffield, and different areas, but not so much in Sheffield. We're trying to educate children on littering and how that affects the environment. We do lots of different talks on environmental issues. That's one of them. We could tie that in with, litter pickers, get the litter pickers into the schools. Is there something that we can do and maybe work with the local council and maybe with Jamie and put a scheme together whereby we're doing something in the local area so that we can then expand it out into the rest of Sheffield.
Gillian, you need to come to the microphone, that's okay.
I could shout, I don't think.
It's the webcast.
That's all right.
Oh, what do I do?
No, nothing, just talk.
So Gillian Fairbrother, I'm from AME, I'm the Area Highways Rep for South East Sheffield. So we have an environmental education officer, and she's done quite a lot of school assemblies very recently actually. We've just done Rainbow Forge and Rainhead School, and she's very open to do any other environmental type.
Again, if you want to...
I'll speak to Scott, because if you want to meet up, I can come to the same meeting with Jane and Scott.
Absolutely brilliant, thank you. And the last thing is about, well, it's the tie-in together, so the environment and food. And so I've got to say I'm very disappointed. I know that the amount of money that's split everywhere is obviously, there's been a hell of a lot gone on parking, traffic, fines, that sort of thing. But the amount that's gone on environment for me is quite disappointing, being part of Nature Recovery Sheffield, especially as Sheffield City Council declared a nature emergency not so long ago. So I've got to say that's quite disappointing, because the environment affects everyone, and what we do environmentally, it has a huge impact. So just on the back of that then, is there any chance that as a local, in every local area, that we could have an environmental group set up with a councillor and someone possibly from Sheffield Parks, and in addition someone from the housing who are involved in the local grasslands, looking after the environment, cutting of grasses. It's taken a long time, but eventually my partner Richard has been very persistent, and we have managed eventually to get the big field at the top of Burley Spa, where it's no longer cut, as in cut to scalped every 2 weeks throughout the summer. It's now being left to rewild, and there are pathways that are just going to be mown so that people can access it. It's going to help the environment. It's also going to stop a lot of the quad biking, which obviously I realise is a bit of an issue throughout, and also just the general biking that's going on. People used to, well, I don't know who it was, but they've got quad bikers who would go up and just rip the grass up, and hopefully the long grass will deter them. So there's a twofold win-win there for doing that sort of thing. So we need to have a look in the local area to see what other areas can be rewilded, and what can be done working with the council and Sheffield Parks, and also see if there are any areas that can be used for growing food, because we are heading for a food crisis. Food, as was said earlier on, food banks are struggling now. As a local area, we should be helping to source food banks with fresh produce if we can. There are groups and organisations within Sheffield that can be worked with. There's Regather, Sheffield Food Works, and if land could be opened up and offered to them or other similar groups, then it would, one, take away the additional cost for Sheffield Council to look after that land. There are also, there are also a lot of allotments that aren't utilised as well. Now, a lot of allotments were left because of COVID. They're now overgrown, and people are unwilling when they see them now to take them on, which is understandable because it's going to take them a year. And I think an incentive should be given by Sheffield Council whereby perhaps
it's an either or. You can take on this allotment, and if you can manage to clear it in a year, you get that 12 months free, because it's going to take them a year to clear it and then start growing things, and then after that you will then pay the subscription. But if you don't, you'll get paid. You'll have to pay for it anyway, and do some sort of scheme like something like that will give people an incentive to, one, take over a plot that's not being utilised, and also bring an income in to the council that isn't given at the moment. Is that something that can be looked at?
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask Jane if she wants to respond.
Again, Community Forestry have just done an orchard down at Waterthorpe. I don't know if anybody's actually aware of that. So they're quite keen on community planting. So it might be something that you want to look into. If there's obviously further places that can be cultivated.
Yeah, but this is more on a personal level. If the small pocket parks have opened up, people can actually access funding for these areas if these areas can be identified throughout, working with the council. These areas need to be identified first as areas that people can take on and maintain. I was at a meeting with, it was a round table with, after the George Monbiot book presentation, and Pete Garbutt was there, and obviously he's very keen to try and get small groups within Sheffield up and running, and that's something that needs to be have a look at, where it's actually areas that people can say, yes, this area we can use that, we can release that area. Even areas that are used for dumping things now, if they were utilised for something else, perhaps the dumping wouldn't take place. Okay, that's me done. Sorry I've taken a long time.
So just very quickly, within the community plan, one of the things is to pull together an environmental champions group for the South East to look at the issues and to try and tackle those issues, those very issues that you've just raised. So the rewilding, the use of obviously open space, etc., etc. We haven't had a chance to develop that. I know that there are other parts within the South East that are as keen as you are and have wanted to do the same sort of thing. So really pleased if you'd be obviously want to be part of that environmental champions group. We haven't set it up yet. The committee are really keen that happens and that we have discussions around that, but that's one of the things that's next on our list to do. So if I can put your name down, Tom, that would be great.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, thank you. Gail, do you want to come back?
Thank you for that. Very interesting. I think all of us would support what you've said. I think it's a question actually to Jane. Is it possible to contact this lady and put it on our website and try and get people that look at the website to get involved, invite people to, and encourage people to?
Yeah, we can always take a look. Whatever we can do, we'll try and do. So definitely we'll send.
I'll give you my details later. Okay, thank you. Is anybody else? No. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I think is that to do with yes, it is. Yeah, can you come through to the microphone there, please?
I'll put mine off. I have on shade. Red buttons. Hi everyone. I'm Rowan Longhurst. I'm the service manager for Countryside at Sheffield City Council. So it's great to see loads of interest, particularly on the environmental agenda. It's something that I know that we've picked up with Jane, and it would be great to see lots of you guys kind of coming to a meeting that can look at these issues. Just a brief point on the allotments front. It's a very topical issue at the moment, and really see particularly the interest in food growing has risen hugely, and certainly the allotments office and the team there have really seen that. We've just finished an exercise that was created, I guess, partly by the pandemic in terms of a surge in applications for allotments, and that has created a long waiting list, several thousand people long, and now that we're at we've just completed an exercise to essentially sift that waiting list to understand whether the demand is actually still there after some people perhaps have lost interest over the pandemic and perhaps got back to their busy lives. So it's really interesting to see that the interest is still there from residents, and I think we'll feel that even more. Certainly it's an exercise we would love help with in terms of identifying land opportunities, particularly in the areas of the city where we see the longest lists. But yeah, it's a real challenge, and it's something that we really like to get people's ideas and support on, definitely.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Rooney wanting to ask you a question.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, a couple of things. Do you know whether or not the South East Countryside Management meeting still takes place? That was, or may still be, a meeting where groups such as the lady earlier described actually used to meet on a regular basis and discuss precisely this sort of issues. And I don't know whether that still exists or not.
I don't think so. I've only been in my role for the last year, and from what I understand, it hasn't met in that time. And certainly from meetings I've had with residents and councillors in the area, there's again a lot of appetite, and particularly given the aim identified in the plan, that seems like a really sensible thing to rejuvenate.
It seems to me, because I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, but what the member of the public was describing was precisely what that meeting and groups of various types used to do. They used to discuss precisely those issues.
That sounds great, yeah.
So we're talking about resurrecting something that used to exist.
It sounds like it, yeah, great.
And the other is, in terms of rewilding places and using open spaces, can I suggest that those people who are in favour of such things actually make a contribution to the consultation on the local plan when it comes out? Because we have a policy of building on brownfield sites, and though some of the sites that are going to be built on that are brownfield sites are now the lungs of some of the communities who have in the past lost the spaces, the green spaces that they had. So if you're keen to preserve your greenfield sites and possibly rewild some of the brownfield sites, I suggest that you take part in the consultation on the local plan.
What's that local plan?
It's basically, not entirely, but largely about what we will do with, how we will provide enough housing over the next 20 years, I think it is. And it's a huge number, and what we do is we go through basically a process of asking landowners or just the general public to put forward sites that they might think are suitable for building on. And it's a government thing, we have to have one, because they determined that we need they've said that we need 53,000 new homes in Sheffield in the next 20 years. That figure, we don't agree with that figure, and we're in dispute with them that we actually need that many. So that's a very, very quick and simplistic explanation of what the local plan is. But it's also about where we put industry and where we leave, hopefully, some of our greenfield sites alone.
Can I just ask, how can we contribute, like you say, to that plan?
I was just going to say, I think it will be released around the end of September, I think. I don't think we've got exact dates yet, but it's around the end of September, and it will probably be fairly big news. So I'm sure we will talk about it as well.
Thank you. I've got 3 more people. Yeah, hold on a minute. Yes. Just hold on a minute. Moment. I've got 3 people now put their hands up that want to speak on this issue. I'm presuming that's the 3 people who want to speak on this issue, and I've still got 1 person that still hasn't answered their first question yet. People need to come out to the microphone so that people that are being webcast. So, Kath, can you come out to the microphone, please?
What it is that we've got a building at Rose Avenue at Bayton. Our committee members are here. And our back garden there has got a couple of apple trees on. One young, really, about 7 or 8 year old, and a pear tree. But the rest of the garden is just wild. And if anybody knows anybody who would like to take it on, I'm sure our committee would, at the next committee meeting, would agree for anybody, if they want to take it on and do the garden, do it as their own, they can. I'm sure that there would be a small financial thing like they do with other allotments. And I'm just saying, it's open to everybody to think about.
Thank you, Kath. Thanks for that offer. And then I had, there's 2 people there, but I don't know who was the first one. So if you both want to come out to the front and then ask your questions, please. Thank you. Are you the same people that had their hands up with a question anyway? Yeah, I thought it was. Right, okay.
I'm Claire Baker at Bayton Ward, and this is Sandra. With the neighbours. We're here on behalf of Althorpe Fields Action Group, and I've just got a short piece I'd like to read out. But I just wanted to pick up on what Dawn said about the mowing. On Monday, I found a pyramid orchid in one of the verges near Althorpe Fields, one of only 2 in Sheffield that have been found this year, and they've not been in Sheffield before. And before I reported it to the council on Tuesday, the verge had been mowed and it's gone. A pyramid orchid. There's only 2 been seen in Sheffield, and this year, and they're unheard of. And it had gone Tuesday morning. They'd mowed the verge and it had gone. So, but I have a picture of it, so we have reported it. Anyway, right. So in the last 3 years, we've worked Althorpe Fields Action Group diligently to document and provide evidence about what there is on Althorpe Fields. And therefore, we'd like to present to you today a summary of the myriad of species that we've recorded, which is about 842 so far, from surveys that we have commissioned and paid for with our own funds and from our own observations. There will, of course, be many more species that we, because we're not professionals, have not managed to identify, but all our records are verified and available for national consultation. The evidence within this portfolio demonstrates beyond a shadow of a doubt that this land, after 20 years of rewilding, is now a valuable biodiverse grassland, a habitat that Council Ecology Unit has deemed a local conservation priority habitat in their biodiversity action plan for grasslands, and which also far exceed the minimum criteria to be designated as local wildlife sites. Please take time to look at our evidence, and please don't just miss the fields as a bit of old grassland and scrub of little wildlife value to be built upon just because they were allocated for housing decades ago. We urge you to use your influence you have within the council to ensure that this data gets to the highest level decision makers. Please do it for the local communities around Althorpe Fields and beyond, the wildlife, the climate and the environment, and do it so that future generations of South East Sheffield have an environment beneficial for their mental and physical health. We ask you, our local representatives, to take our data and use it to try and get Althorpe Fields removed as housing land from the new local plan and get them designated as green space and local wildlife sites instead. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do you just want to stay there in case there's questions, because I think there's people that want to come in. So, Bob? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just I'd support the Althorpe Action Group on this, because I know they've done an awful lot of work at their own time, their own expense, and it was very disappointing that when they went to the planning appeal against the point development on there, all their work was essentially dismissed as being irrelevant. And as local representatives, I don't think we can agree with that. You know, they've put the work in, they've done the research, and not just them, but a lot of statutory organisations. So you've got that portfolio, Chair, and I would hope that we can put this forward to as part of the local people's thoughts on the local plan. Because, like Claire says, yes, it was designated as housing at the time, but things have moved on a bit. And quite frankly, the way that the development is being done at the moment, there is a real fear it'll have a knock-on effect right the way down through the valley, right the way down as far as here. As we know, the farm at the bottom regularly gets been flooded, and the development there now, and I'm not an expert on it, but we know there's an attenuation pond being put in to reduce the risk of flooding. Exactly how that's going to work, I don't know, because I know the farm has lost machinery, has lost bits of land, has had to move livestock because it's been flooded with whatever, they don't know. And so it should affect right the way from Hackerthorpe, Althorpe, you know, Crystal Peaks, right the way down Mosborough, right the way down here into Bayton. So that portfolio, there's a lot of information in there. A lot of what's on there will be found all the way around this area. So it's nothing we can just dismiss, it's just Althorpe Fields. It's about this southeast area. And I think it must be added to the local plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I just ask, do any of the other Bayton councillors want to say anything on this issue or not? Yeah.
Well, I'd just like to say that I have had a meeting with Claire and the other person, Sandra, and I've met Claire on a few occasions, and they have worked really hard, and I do think that the information they've given us, it does need to be taken into account, because it's such a lovely area around there, and the whole of the southeast is, and it just needs to be used and not just pushed on one side. Definitely. It's just going to affect the whole of this area if it's built on.
Curtis, do you want to say?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of echo what Bob and Anne have said, and I know we had a meeting in the calendar, but unfortunately I caught COVID, so that had to be cancelled, but we'll try and rearrange something, because you've put a lot of work into that.
We have.
And I kind of want to download your brain a bit and see what we can do as local councillors to put that into action, and hopefully what we can do as a LAC as well to put that into action. So thank you for bringing it.
Can I suggest that it goes to the relevant committee? We've moved into a committee. For those that aren't aware, we've gone from cabinet to a committee structure, and this is something that could go to the relevant committee. So I presume, I don't know which committee it is because I'm not familiar with them all now, but whichever one it goes to that covers environment, then I think it would be worth you taking it. Or yeah.
Can I just say thank you very much, ladies, for the work that your group's done tirelessly for a long, long time. And I echo what my colleagues are saying. We really need to support the work that you've done and put it into this plan if we can.
But we knew what was there, it was just never documented, and we've tried to document and prove and evidence everything that is there, so it's not hearsay, and we don't have a planning inspector just dismissing it as local people, NIMBYs. So, thank you.
Bob, are you wanting to come back in?
Please, Chair. Just picking up on something Mick was on about earlier about the housing and the local plan. I am on the planning board, and believe me, it's a very frustrating board to be on, because essentially local councillors, their powers over planning now is diminished so much over the last few years. It really is terrible. But even Clive Betts has voiced his opinion on it. It really is, it used to be, as a local councillor, well, as a councillor on the planning board, even though the legal reason for application to go through was sound, if you like, the effect on local community could be taken into account, and essentially that is now gone. And this has been drip-fed through the different governments through the last few years. And essentially now, if we want to refuse anything, we can only refuse on guaranteed planning grounds. We cannot say, no, that's not what the local community wants. And that is absolutely wrong as far as I'm concerned. We hear these tales about levelling up and northern powerhouse, etc., etc. And in my opinion, it's just a load of BS. You know, it's the only way I can describe it. In reality, as local councillors, we are getting less and less powers to get things done for local communities. And I find it very frustrating. So I think it's important things like this go into the local plan. As Mick says, it's just about housing. It's also about where industry is situated. It's also about housing, about health service. It's also about schools. It's also about roadways. And we all know the roads around Crystal Peaks are an absolute nightmare, especially on a Saturday or Sunday morning.
Thanks, Bob.
You go away. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the folder. Is this one to keep, or is it right? Thank you very much. So if anybody will keep it within the South East Like, thank you for your time. I think that is all the questions that we've got from everyone there. We have got more to go through. I haven't missed anybody, have I? Everybody's had the speak. Do you want to come to the microphone?
Good evening, my name is Alan Cockayne, member of the Woodhouse Forum, and my history within the Woodhouse group has been about crime prevention and the environmental issues. I have a question actually here about the, I was party to the 16 cameras that we've had installed around S13. And I'm thankful for the committees and the council for putting them in. The main question is, are they monitored? If they're monitored, then obviously, because they're 360-degree cameras, if they're monitored, then why is we still having all the crime and the speeding and the littering, the youth problems, the night sleepers? If these cameras are actually active, then there should be something done about it. There must be somebody monitoring them, or they've been a waste of money. That's one point. The second point is, we have an issue with the library. It's been 3 years in the making, and this is where our forum meeting should have been. We've not had the ability to use it. Mike's in sympathy with me on that score. I wonder how long it's going to take before we actually can get it working. We have an IT issue at the moment, but that doesn't mean to say it can't be used. There are some clubs and things using it, but it's not doing the job of the community that the community needs at the moment. Here we have a situation that I believe the government could actually do something about. If those speed cameras are working, if those monitors are working, the speed vans, if they're working, are they actually getting those criminals and those people fined? If they are being fined and they're going through the courts, wouldn't it be easier for the council to take some of that income and use it back into the society that we've been discussing tonight? So I'm pretty sure now that Sheffield's losing out big time on the amount of crime detected and crime not just reported but actually fined and income generated from it. That would help with that £100,000 that we're tightly using at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Councillor Rooney if he wants to come in on that. I think a lot of what you've said must be organised by the police, so we haven't got here tonight, I presume it.
In terms of the new library, I mean, you and I had a conversation beforehand. It's been a catalogue of omissions by the council. The first mistake was that the council didn't appoint a project manager, which to me is like, I just don't understand that. So that's one of the problems that we've had. There was a lot of haggling over the contribution from the developer to various issues and various facilities within the new library. And now we have a situation where, then there was the issue of the contractors who didn't bury the gas pipes and water pipes and etc. far enough down, and then when they were bricked over and then vehicles started riding over them, we had gas escapes, water escapes and all sorts of things, so they had to do it all over again. So that didn't help very much. Then we had also had a shortage of steel, because the steel at that time was coming from China, which is, bizarre, isn't it? You know, Steel City, and we're getting steel from China. But that's nothing to do with me. And now we have a situation where it's been delayed because of an IT issue. And the thing that I find the most frustrating is the lack of urgency within all of that. You know, I understand that COVID has got in the way. That's why my voice is like it is, just as a legacy of having COVID twice, which is not to be recommended. And I understand that, but it's a frustration that nobody's taking this, getting it by the scruff of the neck and saying, look, we've got an asset here that took 10 years in the planning, and it's still not open, and it should be. So, you know, we are trying to get it open, and we will continue to do so. In terms of the cameras are rolling all the time, but I don't believe that they're being monitored.
Correct.
So what tends to happen is that if there's an incident, then the police will ask to look at the recording at the time of that incident.
So they just record it?
That's my understanding of it. Now, I may be completely wrong because I've not been fully immersed in that one. Councillor Paul Wood, who unfortunately isn't here this evening, is the Woodhouse councillor that's led on that. But that's my understanding of it. So if there's an incident, then they can go and say, at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, this happened, show us the pictures. But they are being they are being recorded all of the time. That's my understanding of it.
And the fines from any speeders and criminal activities from them?
Well, I mean, criminal activities, there is a way of confiscating the proceeds of crime, isn't there? And that goes into a fund that is redistributed, I believe, to benefit the victims of crime. In terms of speed fines, I don't know. Unless somebody else knows what happens to speeding fines, I don't know.
Seeing that we haven't got the facts and that, is it worth us getting that information and then writing out to you with it? Is that helpful? And then we're actually talking facts then.
Reaction from it, very good.
Yeah, I'm just worried about time, and we've still got 2 or 3 more.
I think your points. I'm sat here thinking it's unbelievable. We've got all these cameras and we're not getting them monitored, and I can't answer why. But I think that the LAC can ask the questions and find out why, and we could bring it back to our next meeting, and hopefully you'll be able to come and we'll be able to answer your questions. Because I am gobsmacked, to be honest, because I used to live in Woodhouse. I can remember the bad old days when the reason they put those cameras in, and we need them to be monitored, so we need to find some information.
And it's cost you for them not being active.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I'm now going to invite Laurie Brennan to talk to us briefly about the cost of living crisis and the actions the council are taking on this. Thanks, Laurie. And then we'll move into a discussion, which will be, it's not going to be a lengthy discussion because of the time, but just what items that you want, so if you could have a think about topics that you want to discuss in the future to have on the agenda, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Right, good evening everybody. Thank you for inviting me over here to this afternoon. It's, evening now, isn't it? There's I'm going to keep this pretty brief because I know that there's plenty we're can talk about the cost of living crisis, and you probably read a lot in the press and see a lot on the TV news about what's going on. What I want to try and do is probably three things: just give you a sense of what's happening in the city and what we see, and what we're trying to do to try and respond to that. The second bit is about what we're doing with the other partners in the city, so the NHS, the police, the fire and rescue, and the voluntary sector as well. And then just thirdly, probably teeing up maybe a future conversation at this lack about local response and what you can do as a sort of local area, and also the important role you play in terms of being eyes and ears on the ground and seeing the impact on your fellow residents, on yourselves as well. So just really briefly. Now, we know that poverty was getting worse before COVID anyway in Sheffield, but in Sheffield particularly, we know that there was a significant challenge with child poverty and in people who had quite low incomes. Obviously, that's got worse through COVID because of the impact of the pandemic on economic outcomes for people. But what we're seeing now with the cost of living crisis is that we know it's getting worse now, but we're also projecting that's going to get worse in the winter as things impact in terms of things like the energy price cap going up again. So we're seeing people's real incomes not going as far anymore because the cost of food has gone up, the cost of fuel's gone up, and obviously energy prices. People looking at their smart meters, seeing the kind of the bar going round every day at a much greater rate than it previously has. Some of the consequences of that are things like seeing more illegal money lending taking place in the city, seeing more households in debt, and obviously there's a lot of fantastic advice services we have in Sheffield, things like the Sheffield Citizens Advice, but there's lots and lots of organisations. Lots of those organisations were already pretty stretched because of the work they put in COVID, alongside communities and alongside the council and other public services to support people through the pandemic, and that demand on them has not really stepped off at all because of the scale of the ask they've got now with the cost of living crisis as well. What I should say is, of course, we don't have all the levers either, because things like, no matter what, we can try as best in the city to try and support communities and do the things we can do to support households and people who are feeling the worst experience of this. But one of the challenges is things like food prices, energy prices, fuel prices. We don't have all the levers to control them, and obviously the governments are even in a similar space where they don't have all the powers to control the impact of the market in that sort of space as well. And as I've said, I think one of the challenges here is the worst is ahead of us probably. So what are we doing? Well, in the last couple of weeks you might have seen this already. The leader of the council, working with the members on the Strategy and Resources Committee, had its first meeting, and we've set out a proposal to effectively initiate what you call incident-style responses, incident-style response to it. So basically, in COVID, we had an emergency incident response for the city, where you bring together all the statutory partners like the police, like the fire, like the NHS and the council to try and coordinate how the city responds to something like that. Now, clearly, that was an official emergency. What we're trying to do is imitate that sort of style of response to make the point that this is of significant scale for every community in Sheffield, and we're seeing the impact now. So we've set up to use the jargon phrase, and I apologise, I'll explain what I mean, what you call a strategic and a tactical response groups. So strategic means getting people like the leader of the council, the chief execs, the vice chancellor of the universities together to coordinate a response for the city, but then also at a tactical level, thinking about the practical response from voluntary sector organisations, public services, how we get around communities and help them when they need us the most. So that's happening. What the outcome of that will be is we've set up an initial action plan. So again, not getting into jargon, what are we going to do something about when we haven't got all the levers, what are we going to do to help people when they need it? There's probably about 4 or 5 key bits to that. One is around communication and signposting. This is affecting everybody, and it's not just people on the lowest incomes, it's people on middle incomes, seeing their incomes not going as far as it used to be. So getting good advice and signposting to people, so about managing debt, making good choices with money, maximising their incomes, so making sure people are claiming all the benefits they should be claiming, and providing welfare and debt advice as well. And again, that's with the voluntary sector, and who do a fantastic job. they've also got a single Sheffield Money Advice website, so it's called sheffieldmoneyadvice.co.uk. If you look on there, it's a single point of access to loads and loads of information about good guidance around using your money, debt advice, that sort of thing, and it'll connect you to lots and lots of services, so it's really, really important and a really helpful website to use. The next thing we're doing, and this is particularly about the City Council, is there's a bit of a coordinated review going on of our hardship grants. So effectively, if people come to us in need of financial support, really trying to make that really straightforward for people to use, so that we're making it as simple as it possibly can be for people to access support. And one of the things that came out of the budget from this year as well was creating a food access plan, which effectively is trying to support food banks with more finance and more resource to get people food when they need it the most, but also give them the appropriate sort of advice around that as well, so helping them manage their own money, cooking advice, that sort of thing as well. And the next thing we're going to do is absolutely critical, but is starting to do some preparatory planning for winter. Because as I've said already, once things like the price cap go up, we know that obviously people are struggling right now, and people really aren't using their heating because it's 20 degrees outside, it's not cold, and we already know we have families who are choosing between eating and heating in the winter, and if the price increases carry on in the way they are, they might not have a choice to make, they may be doing neither, and that's more of a concern, I think. So just finally, because I want to keep this going, obviously at local area committee level, your people are connected to your communities, you're seeing what's happening on the ground, so there's that sort of trying to spot where we know people have got real challenges, where we can do whatever we can to support those communities across every bit of the city, but also probably trying to do some sort of planning around what local advice and local services and sort of support networks are in place in the South East, to start thinking about how can we best use that and coordinate responses to communities as and when they need it the most, because obviously we're seeing significant impact now. Planning for thinking about how it's going to get worse potentially in the winter unless something significantly changes is probably what we all need to start doing now. And it's, without getting into the detail here, I know that all the LAC managers have been starting to do some of that work already, and there's a really good example that happened in the East LAC as well, where they've done a little workshop with plenty of consistent signposting advice that works at city level, but then starting to think how they best coordinate and work with advice services and voluntary sector services at local level as well. So I think probably between myself and one of my colleagues, Kat Arnold, who's doing some fantastic work on this, probably working with the LAC managers as well and starting to think about how we coordinate this across all the LACs. So we'll be trying to do that in the coming weeks as well. Again, it's a moving piece and something that's happening obviously live, so we're trying to develop our responses as we're going, because clearly we've got an initial action plan helping with the rest of the public sector and the advice sector to start coordinating a collective response for the city, but having that site at local level as well and thinking about what specifically works for the areas in the South East, for example, would be really, really beneficial, and having that connection between what we're trying to do at a city level and what we're doing at local level will be absolutely key, to be quite honest.
Brilliant, thank you, Laurie. This moves us on nicely to topics that we want to see at the next public meeting. And one of the things I think I've just heard out from Lauren, I don't know what members of the public think, is to have this kind of conversation about cost of living, but South East specific, and how we can tap into that information and how we can make it work for our communities locally. So that's one suggestion that I've just heard, and I'd like to hear if anybody's got any other suggestions. Anybody got any areas that they want to talk about, either for next time or the time after? Yes, Dawn?
Yeah, so obviously silence really confusing.
Sorry, can you, I just can't hear you, that's all.
I know there's a lot of food poverty, and that's obviously going to get worse, but in addition to that, unfortunately, there's a lot of food waste, and people aren't aware that, you know, it's unfortunate now, because we rely on supermarkets to tell us whether food is fit to eat or not. People don't listen to the senses, don't smell something, don't look at something and think that's still fit to eat, and will unfortunately put it in the bin and it's actually fit to eat. This needs to be addressed and re-educated. People need to be aware of that. And there are also cases where people have got food and they know full well they're not going to be able to eat it, they can't store it, they've got no room in the freezer. There are some fridges that you can apply for, local fridges that you can have, but they need access. I don't know how much access there is, but the funding is free. You just need to have somewhere that is open for people to come and put things in the fridge, and the fridge needs to be monitored. And that's another way of addressing food waste, and there's lots of different ways that we can do that as a local community and raise awareness as to where that food can go locally, so that people can just go and take the food and drop it off, and also to make people who need the food aware that it's there for them to go and take.
Okay, thank you for that. It all seems to tie in. Maybe it's it's something that we can do as a one. Yeah, Laurie?
Just to come back in, thank you, that's great. And I can probably link up with an officer who's from the public health team who's leading on the food access plan as well, because I think that sort of practical intervention and that practical suggestion of what you could do at community level feels like really, really helpful. It'd be a good thing to do. So I can link you with Jess as well.
Anybody else from yes? Can you come to the microphone just so that we can hear? It's just that it's being webcast and people watching in can't hear.
Can we have a discussion about the S20 wildlife corridor that kind of it's just stalled?
I was going to say, Chair, that the date of the next meeting is the 27th of September. Hopefully we've got sight of a local plan by then. So,
can I just stop you to say no? It's not. I have got a note to say that the next date isn't the 27th of September. It's going to be October.
Oh well, so, we definitely will have sight of a local plan by then.
So the local plan as well. Okay, so we've got at least 4 items there for further discussion. So that's great.
Oh, just yes, of course you can. Yeah. So let me just ask this resident. Yeah, please.
It was just to acknowledge that we've got a lot of community groups or local activists here that are really valuable contribution to the... Sorry, can you hear me now? Yeah. I was saying we've got a lot of community activists and local groups or representatives of the community here that have a real valuable contribution to our area. And what I've heard here tonight, I was thinking it would be helpful to have some sort of space for us to actually mingle and talk to each other, to share ideas. And one of the ladies has offered a community garden, and I think we can just kind of help each other out with some of our shared goals. So, and I think that's what we're missing. Somebody said earlier on about the Green Spaces Forum isn't there anymore. But we could perhaps work something out between us to just share those ideas, which is what used to happen there. Yeah, would there be time to do that?
Yeah, that's really good. I've got that down as well, and see if we can get something up and running for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jessica. I think that is going to be the future of this group. The LAC is about local communities and people like yourselves coming and talking to us and us getting your information so we can keep in contact, because it's invaluable. This is really why I joined politics. I'm not trying to be political, but I believe in grassroots, and there's a lot of people here tonight and it's been invaluable listening to some of the things you've been saying. So I think what you said is important. We need your contact details.
Thank you, Gail. Okay, so we've got as items for the future meeting. Sorry, mate. I dare, I'm listening.
It's okay, I won't take it personal. It's Laurie. Am I right in thinking that some time ago, maybe year and a half, some work was done on mapping the food banks across the city and various other outlets where people could obtain food from? And what happened to that? Do you know?
I think that's part of the work. That's part of the food access plan. So in the council budget this year, there was a £200,000 investment in a food access plan to start distributing some resource into food banks. But obviously that's linked to the food bank network. The other thing in there as well is that I think one of the actions we need to think about is how we best support food banks, because I think some of the information we're getting is that they're significantly overstretched, and if you look at things like the S2 and the S6 food bank, they're consistently asking for donations and things now. Obviously there's a risk that donations dry up as people's incomes don't go as far, and therefore you lose that contribution that people are making. There's all the other things that people have talked about. I'm sort of riffing a little bit here, where we have like a network of lunch clubs and things like that, where we might have to think about how you expand access to things like that if we get to that point of needing it. So yes, that piece of work is factored into the work we're doing around food access, to be honest.
I just think that there needs a certain level of urgency about that may not be evident at the moment.
I think that's right, because I think was it your scrutiny committee that led the piece of work on food poverty? Yeah, that's right. So that's the thing that's driven the food access plan as an outcome that's come out of full council as well. So that piece of work has all been factored into that, and I think that there's also a new food strategy that's being written at the minute, which is part of that. I think that's due September time, I think, as well. So it brings together all those pieces of work.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for everybody's patience as well. So you've just heard anyway about the meeting was going to be September, and we're going to do it in October now. There's been a bit of an issue about the date, and that'll come out as soon as we've got a fixed date for that. The other item that I've got on here is about the Jubilee Events, and just wanted to give you some quick information about funding allocations. So we received 26 applications for funding. 25 of them were successful, one was declined at the point of funding. Per ward there was 5 in Mosborough, 5 in Bayton, 10 in Woodhouse and 5 in Burley. So that's just to let you know about the funding that we gave out to groups to put on Jubilee Events. You'll have seen that on the boards, they're the events that took place, and we've got information there.
Rose Avenue had one as well.
Yeah, it will have been under Bayton then, I presume.
We didn't get any funding.
Right, okay. Yeah, there were a lot of street parties and that didn't do any funding, but these are the groups that, these are the groups that applied to us and that we funded. So 26 applied and 25 were successful.
And that, just to come in there, nationally we did, centrally we did a big Jubilee event in Norfolk Park, which I was involved in organising, and 23,000 people came to that, and that was a free event with entertainment on for all ages, and we had sea cadets doing displays, we had orchestras, we had up bands, we had all sorts of things, and it was a really good feel factor that day. I don't know if any of you attended, but there were pictures on the website. Just
is there an archive of any sort that we've got a 10-foot banner saying that and it's a picture of the Queen on, and it's got Bayton Tower Jubilee party, and although we could pick it up and chuck it away, is there something we can do with it to archive it anywhere in Sheffield? Does anybody know?
Is it the 1977 one you're talking about?
No, it's this one. This one. Yeah, it's where can we send it to be preserved for rather than chuck it in the bin.
We have got a Sheffield Archives on Shoreham Street. I'm sure we can make inquiries to see if it's something that they can. I mean, I can't promise anything because I don't know what they are.
Somebody knows my number, don't we?
Yes. Yeah. Okay then, everybody. That brings us to the end of business. Thank you so much for coming tonight, and thank you for sharing all your experiences, your questions. And hope to see you in October. Please, if you can make it, we'd love to see you. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.